Hello everybody, thanks for watching this video. So in the last 2 years I had a couple of interesting experiences that have changed me a lot and brought me on a journey to understand better myself and the universe. And always when I try to tell this to other people, I felt only half or less of the information that I have learned arrived at the other person. So I felt like I should try to um, make something that I can tell it to them better. And I was writing everything down, drawing pictures, and now I ended up making this presentation. So hopefully with that you can understand a little bit better what happened to me, and maybe you can apply some of those things in your life as well, and maybe it can help you somehow. Let's see. So let's go to the presentation. I try to keep myself in this window here on the bottom all the time, but if there's a picture that you need to see, I will remove it, and then you're gonna hear my voice. But I figured it would be a little bit more interesting if you can still see me talking. So yeah, let's try. So I called it pixel theory. If you don't know why, then during the presentation you're gonna understand. But basically, because I believe that we are made of pixels out of three-dimensional pixels. Like we would have two-dimensional pixels on a TV screen, but I think we are part of a three-dimensional TV screen that I learned to see, and I want to show you how I understand how it works, and yeah, then you can make your own image of it. So let me go to the present. Chrome here. Yes. So the intro, it's basically telling, I have made some interesting discoveries in the last 2 years that I would like to share. And it started after I had some fascinating experiences with psychedelics, starting with shrooms or truffles, and then later on also with LSD. If you have never tried those things, I just ask you to keep an open mind during the presentation. I will provide you with more information about the subject on psychedelics and their benefits and sources. But yeah, like try not to judge and be interested. I felt it has opened my mind in many different ways, so I wouldn't disregard them just as drugs and say that it's all bad. So after I have had those experiences, I was very obsessed to understand how the universe really works, because I felt like I saw a reality that to me personally felt more real than this reality that we are constantly seeing every day. And yeah, it made me want to understand better what are these things that I'm seeing. So this obsession has led me down a rabbit hole of information that seemed to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it made me question everything that I have believed to be true. And I would say now that almost all the things that I thought would be true are basically a lie. Like our society that we are growing up with, the system that brings us into school and then tells us we have to find a job, and the richer we are, the happier we are. It's all bullshit. And well, we thinking that this is the way how we have to live, it's totally wrong. And we have to find our way again to the truth of what the essence of life is really about, why we are here on this planet. So it seemed to me that we humans have a very interesting history that goes much beyond the 2,000 years or 10,000 years that we give ourselves credit to. And I believe it goes even way, way, way more back, but we have just basically forgotten those things. Like we have forgotten such a big part of our history that we are now like blind children running around, and we don't even know what we are doing, as if we would be a whole species with amnesia, because we don't know where we're coming from, or yeah. So to be able to explain what I've been discovering, I first have to make sure that you have a basic understanding of some certain topics that I've learned about from the books. So just to make sure that we're on the same level or same page. And to me it seems like there are two worlds. There's this three-dimensional world, our physical world, where we can touch things and hear and smell things, and the time is passing on. And then there's another spiritual world that has no space or time, or space and time exists all at once, like all around us all the time. And I feel like during those experiences with the psychedelics, I was able to have a little sneak peek looking through a hole and seeing this other realm. And I try to capture the best as I can. It's probably impossible to capture it perfectly, but just as good as I can what I saw, and I put it in this presentation. So yeah, let's go. Then also a side note that I want you to not believe anything that I say just blindly. Question all of those things with and like verify them with your own beliefs. And I will provide a list of my sources, the stuff that I've learned from where I've learned them in the end of this presentation, so you can see later on if this makes sense to you. And there are also certain things that can also be only experienced by yourself. So even I'm telling you all about it, it's like if I would tell you everything about riding a bike, but you have never ridden a bike, you would still not know the feeling how it is. So yeah, some things maybe you have to just experience yourself. And if you want to make these experiences, get in touch with me and we can see how we can arrange this for you. Then maybe we can go on this journey more together. But I will ask you to do it with care. Don't just throw yourself into it. And it's better to always have some guides and have people that can help you with the things. Because me too, when I started to look into this other world, I felt like it's very necessary to have people that are already accustomed to it and they know about it and that can help you to guide you on your way. Then I also want to say a thanks to all the people that I've learned from on my journey now looking for understanding of the universe. And without those people, I've probably never been able to get that far in my understanding. And so the persons are Drunvalo Melchizedek, who wrote the book of the Flower of Life and has a really great understanding of what we are doing here, I think, in this universe. Then there is Terrance, McKenna, Graham Hangcock, Rupert Sheldrake, Matias Di Stefano, a YouTube channel called Spirit Science, Paul Stamets, Joe Rogan, and so many more people. If you're interested in this topic, then I would suggest you to read about the book of the Flower of Life. Or also, if you don't like to read, there is this YouTube channel called Spirit Science where there's basically all of the information in the book made in nice short YouTube videos, and you can get the information in little bits. And yeah, that will be maybe easier for you. I don't know. So I will give you the links and the sources in the end of this presentation. Then the structure. So I had to make it in like many different chapters. So, well, I'm not going to read all of this, but just the first part right now is the left side here that we're focusing on, the definition of reality, the materialism, and spirituality, and so on. Then there are actually 3 parts of this theory. The second part will be the main part of the pixel theory, and then the third part will be all the things on the right. Well, maybe you cannot see everything there right now because I'm in the way, but it will basically just end with the conclusion that I drew that, well, the learning keeps going, but this is what I have figured out, and yeah, then that's so now I think I'm in the way of the picture, so I will remove myself. Okay. The first thing is the definition of reality. So what is reality? Normally you would say only the things that you can touch, see, smell, taste, or hear. But to me, no, because there are other things that are not possible to be perceived by our 5 senses, but they still exist and they have effects on our daily life. For example, we cannot sense Wi-Fi at all, but we're using it every day. I mean, you're using it probably to watch this video right now. And there are all other types of waves like radio waves, microwaves, Bluetooth, and they can be used to transfer the data, but our bodies are not able to detect those things. Then we have thoughts, feelings, we have dreams, which can also only be perceived by your consciousness, but we don't have any like proof that they exist. But it shows to me that the reality is interpreted by everything and everybody differently, and you cannot understand how an ant sees reality as much as a blind person cannot understand how reality looks for someone with eyes. but it shows to me that there's a lot of things that we cannot perceive with our senses, but they are real, and there might be other beings that perceive things that we can never see, hear, touch, or feel, but they are real as well. And so I would say, in my opinion, that dreams, feelings, and thoughts are also real. They're just maybe not existing in this three-dimensional plane level, but we can manifest them. We can have a thought, and then once we think about something, we can create it and we can manifest it into this world. Just like all the things that you see in front of you have been created from a thought. For example, the computer or the phone that you're watching this on, they have been thoughts before they were created. So somebody had the idea that you can make something like a phone or a computer, and then they did certain steps and they created it. They went to the factory and they built it, and now you are able to hold that in your hands, or to watch the computer, and you can touch it and see it and feel it. So it has been manifested from a thought into a three-dimensional thing. So yeah, then also I have to say that everything is made from waves, which is just vibrations in different frequencies. And here you have the picture of the flower of life, which has influenced me so much. But I will explain a lot about it later, so yeah, be patient. So everything that you see, hear, or feel, or can smell is a wave of energy vibrating in different frequency. This energy is then received by a receptor in your physical body and interpreted by your brain to try to make sense of it. So when you're looking into the world, you're actually seeing just beams of light that are coming from the sun, radiating like this, and then bouncing off from an object and going into your eye, like you can see in this picture up there. So it goes just from the sun out and goes into your eye. Because of this, you have created the idea of seeing objects that seem as if they are solid and in material form. You can't go through them. But actually, they're also just radiations of energy, but they vibrate so fast or so dense that the light cannot penetrate them. The denser things are, having certain vibration, the harder is the material. So the same is for all other senses. If a wall is thick enough, sound cannot penetrate it, it cannot go through. But that doesn't mean that nothing can go through the wall. Radio signals will pass because their frequency is not colliding with the vibration of the wall. So technically, if you could adjust your vibration, you could touch through material objects, because you just have to change the wavelength of the one thing, and then if it doesn't collide with the wavelength of the other one, it will go through. So materialism is not as material as we think. Then yeah, every being has the different receptors to recognize these waves and will therefore have a different interpretation of the outer world. I have to remove the picture, sorry guys. While the average human can hear sounds ranging from 20 hertz, the lowest, to 20,000 hertz, more or less the highest, dogs can hear sounds from 40 hertz up to 50,000 hertz, and bats can even hear up to 200,000 hertz, which enables them to maneuver around without seeing with their eyes. So their reality is totally different than ours, but they are able to see. This already shows how a different organ for receiving waves can drastically impact the way that you interact with the world. And this was only for sound and light, but feeling, like the touch, tasting, and smelling, are also completely dependent on the sensory organs and also impact the way of how you interact with the world. Our senses are limited, and thus we perceive only a small fraction of the whole reality out there, and are therefore not capable of grasping anything near the real concept of what the whole universe would really look like. But we can help ourselves with machines and other tools like math or meditation or substances that can maybe alter your state of consciousness to see a wider spectrum. And just talking about the spectrum, here you see the electromagnetic spectrum, which shows here the visible spectrum is tiny. You can see it on the bottom. It's showing here from the red all the rainbow colors until violet. But then on the left you have radio waves, infrared waves, which we cannot see. Then you have ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma rays, which are vibrating way faster, so we are also not able to perceive them. And then I would just like to add this quote that I learned from Nikola Tesla, who said, "If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." So yes, then about materialism. Growing up in this world and society where we pay no attention to those things that are lying outside of our sense of perception, it's easy to believe that only materialistic goods are real, and discrediting everything that does not fit our current scientific point of view, like ghosts or mentalists or shamans or whatever. So if we allow us to believe that there is a whole bunch of information that we will never be able to sense through our organs, we have to come to a new understanding of what reality is. If we agree that our thoughts are real, that means everything that we can imagine is also real. It might just not exist on a three-dimensional plane yet. So we can think of something like a picture or a structure, then start to draw or build it and bring it into our tangible existence, like I explained you guys before. Now I can add my picture again. I'm just gonna move that over there. So, but it has already existed before in our head, when we had the thought, and therefore that means that it was real, even it has not been recognizable by any senses because it wasn't materialized yet, but it was already there. So also science has found out already many years ago that all things are made out of atoms, which are protons and neutrons sticking together, and then the electrons spinning around them in a certain frequency. But it's already proven basically that 99.9% of the atom consists of empty space, because there's this part and this part, but everything in between is nothing, like you can see in those images. Then here as well. So it means that all things that you're touching, seeing right now are not small little pieces, but they are 99% empty space, nothing. And matter is not as solid as it looks. So we should change our materialistic way of thinking into a new concept of understanding this reality. And then there's like a funny meme that says that the atoms consist of 99.99999% empty space. That means the computer that you're looking at, the chair you're sitting on, and yourself are almost not there. So coming to the next chapter, which is spirituality. So this model already existed for thousands of years, and it's called spirituality. Now is the time to bring our common understanding of reality through science and the ancient understanding of spirituality together into a better or new theory. To explain a bit what has brought me on the path, I would like to tell you my stories of how I turned from an atheist materialist that was living life without really thinking that it would have a deeper meaning into a person that believes in a higher power than ourselves. You could call it God, but I don't know, it has so bad reputation, so I don't like the word God necessarily, but for the lack of a better word, let's call it God or spirit. Okay, so let's continue with my own story. So my mom never forced me to believe anything. I was kind of free to choose if I believe in God or not. Sometimes we pray to the universe to make little things happen, but if you would have asked me before if there's a God or not, I would just say probably, but we can't really know for sure until we are dead. So I was generally open for any kind of religion, but something in me didn't really believe in God or Allah, or in the fact that there's a person-like being ruling all over us up there in the sky or something. So I kept this belief until around 26 years old, and I never really thought much about what comes after death or if there is a God, until I started to experiment a little bit with psychedelics. So I took some mushrooms and then later also with LSD, and I don't remember if it was one trip in specific, but I think it was slowly over like a couple of trips that I did. I felt like when the dose was a little bit stronger on the trips, there was opening like a completely new world for me that I have never really seen before, and it got me very interested. So I started to investigate more about this world, and it led me into spirituality. And I was approaching everything very skeptical, because I didn't really believe in psychic phenomena or ghosts or mentalists or like psychic people. But what convinced me over was first time I took LSD and went on a hike with my friends. So I'm gonna tell you this story and what has happened to me there. So first everything was like on other trips, funny, things were a little bit wavy, but in general I felt really good and happy, and I had a big smile on my face. And then we were on the top of the mountain and we smoked some weed together, even we had taken the LSD already. And then things started to get a little bit weird. Like I was feeling a bit uncomfortable, because all of a sudden it looked to me as if the path that we had to walk, which wasn't that far, maybe it was 100 meters, seemed like an endless tunnel. And then I looked down at my feet, and my feet looked like I was 100 meters tall. And it scared me a little bit, but I tried to stay calm and talk to my friends about it. And then it happened that I wasn't sure anymore if I had just told them my thoughts in words, or if my lips even had open right now. So I asked them again, and they were all like really confused what is happening. So just to test that, to check if I was actually talking to them, or if it was just thoughts in my head, I went a couple of meters behind them, let them walk in the front, and then I was just thinking in my head, if you can hear me, say yes. If you can hear me, say yes. If you can hear me, please answer me, say yes. And 2 or 3 minutes later, one of my friends just turns around and looks at me and says yes. And of course can be a coincidence, but for me that was like 100% obvious that he could hear me through my mind. I didn't open my lips any point at that time. So then after we did the hike, I asked him also if he could hear me, that I told him to say yes. And he said that there was something in him telling him to say that yes, but he wasn't sure what it was exactly. So he didn't hear my voice, but he heard something was compelling him to say yes to me. So there's a lot of interesting research on telepathy, but very good one by Rupert Sheldrake, and he shows telepathic connections between humans and animals. And I will also provide links in the sources if you're interested to watch these tests that they did. And then during this trip that I did with my friends on the hike, there happened another interesting thing that was a little bit disturbing. So this I would call the waking up story. And we were hiking there, and I started to see those mandala fractal patterns that usually appear when I have a stronger trip. And for me, they're especially strong when I'm watching the sky. And we just got to a spot where you could see the stars really good. So we sit on the bench and we started to watch the stars. And while I was staring in the stars, but also into the geometry in the sky that was waving around there, I felt like I started to disconnect from this human body, and I'm getting much bigger. And I started to become a spinning sphere, a little bit like I would be a huge baby like this, and I was spinning forward in my mother's belly or something. And then once I started to recognize that I'm in this huge body and not in this body anymore, a lot of eyes started to appear everywhere, like bam, 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 and those eyes were watching me, and it was really freaking me out. So I felt like at this moment I could have woken up maybe from the Matrix, and I could become my real body, like as if we would all be trapped in the Matrix. And then you wake up and you realize like, oh, this was just virtual reality, and you have a real body somewhere hooked up to a computer or whatever. So that it felt like that. But when I saw those eyes staring at me, it was so intimidating, and I was really scared that I'm gonna die right now. So out of this fear to die in this reality here, I directly snapped back, and I was back in my body. And I was again with my friends watching the stars, everything normal, like nothing has happened. So this memory left me thinking for many weeks if we really might be living in a matrix. So I started to look for hints or stories of other people that had similar experiences. And I found out about something called the simulation hypothesis, and found out that many people before me already had that thought, and it's actually being investigated by some scientists as well. But when I kept searching for more information, and I realized we have already known about this for thousands of years, most humans have just forgotten or don't care about it, that we're living in a simulated universe. And many religions also have had stories about it. In Hinduism, they call it Maya, which means illusion, that this world is an illusion. Or there's the story of Plato's allegory of the cave, which I will tell later more in detail. So I started to realize that the ancient civilizations had already understood much more about the nature of reality and the universe than us nowadays. And that led me into a path of like shamanic rituals and holistic healing processes that I had never believed before would be possible. But after all of that I've seen and experienced, I know now that there is a creator, you can call it God if you want, some conscious entity. It's not a guy, doesn't have any specific form, and it's not of what you think of if you are reading the Bible or other religious books, but it's a conscious entity that is responsible for this creation of the universe and for us. And I have been able to communicate with it on my journeys, and it made me now not believe in the existence of a higher creator, but I feel like I know that there is a universal force pushing life energy through us and giving us love. And well, basically we are this God. The God is us and we are this God. I will try to explain it later a little bit better, but yeah, from all what I have seen now, I am 100% convinced, and I'm trying to show ways that you could prove it. Even I know that it's probably necessary to have your own experience on top of that, what I'm saying. But if you have had that experience and then you watch my presentation and you see similarities, maybe we can come to a common denominator to realize that, yeah, we're actually talking about the same thing. So after a long looking, I understood that this being that I have communicating with is actually nobody else than myself, my higher self. And now I'm on a constant journey trying to reconnect to the one, getting more and more information from the other side of our reality so I can understand better how it works, and then hopefully use this information to help the world to create things that make us live more in harmony with the natural spiral of the universe, live in harmony with the nature, live in harmony with the planet. Basically, the Hindus say that the whole universe is a song, universe, un verso, if you take it from the Latin. So it's one song, and what we have to do again is to come back into harmony, because we are playing notes that are totally out of tune and we have to find back into the tune that the universe is playing to come back into harmony, and that we stop destroying this planet and eventually destroy ourselves. So, ancient traditions. Then how it connects to the ancient traditions is that the pyramids are, for me, the best proof that we used to have knowledge that has now been lost, because nobody could build these structures, even today. But the fact that it has been done many thousands of years ago shows me that we have had some sort of advanced knowledge to be able to build it. And the crazy thing is, the more I learn about the ancient knowledge, the more I understand that they also knew about this feeling of the matrix that I had on my trip on LSD. So the information that has been passed down by many generations, and we have kind of forgotten what the message was really about, but still many cultures have done a great job to preserving this important information. I feel like a lot of knowledge that the Hindus have about the universe is just being rediscovered by science in the last few years, and I think this is gonna come up more and more and more, that science will realize something and then religions will tell, but we knew that already a long time ago. And so we have to merge those two things together to get a better understanding. So this one tries to describe a little bit better this God consciousness being that I have experienced in my trips as well. So what I have learned from many meditations and meditation and spiritual teachers is the lesson that consciousness is the base of everything. Reality doesn't exist without anybody being there to perceive it. So suppose that our modern day of understanding of how the world works is completely wrong. Like, we think that there was the Big Bang that created space and time, and then there was gases and stuff was burning, and eventually they were forming stars, and then from explosions forming planets, and on those planets eventually there came the rise of life somehow added itself together, and we had what is the bacteria or something, and that connected itself to become bigger and bigger, and eventually we humans came out of that. But so what if actually consciousness was before the Big Bang, life was before the Big Bang, and then everything else came afterwards as a part of that initial first consciousness? So as if consciousness made the Big Bang, and then everything that has been ever there has been alive and part of that consciousness, and it's not that life came somewhere later on the way, it was always there. So first there was a consciousness in an infinite void, nothingness. It's impossible for us to imagine nothingness, but just ask you now to imagine that there wouldn't be anything, but there would be consciousness, just your sense of being, not even what you are, like your body or your thoughts or whatever, just the fact that you are this consciousness inside an infinite nothing. Because there was nothing else to measure, no time or space, there was no past, no future, only present, no up, down, left, right, back and front to go to. So consciousness had to create time and space to experience itself, as it was not able to perceive anything without a counterpart. Like, an eye can't see anything if there is no object to watch, or a hand cannot touch anything if there's nothing to touch. Like the subject-object relationship, if you have only an object but there's no subject to watch it, you cannot see anything. So that's what consciousness or spirit did. It had to divide itself into two pieces, or many different ones eventually. It divided itself into an infinite billion little pieces to be able to watch itself. And we are all part of this separation. Every human, every animal, every plant, every atom or planet or galaxy is just one perspective or one angle that the one consciousness is looking through to see itself, as it has split itself into infinite many pieces. When I see you, it is actually God that is watching itself. Or when you watch the screen, it's also God watching itself, its own projection. Every sentient being is a piece of God, created by God to be able to see what God is or can become. So it's like God would be an ocean of consciousness, and with every new creation of life, it gives the creator another angle or another perspective to see itself. And we are all of those. But if you trace them back, we are all connected to one large being that is the whole universe, basically. So once you have understood that, you realize that we are all connected, we are all one being, and everything good and bad that you have ever done in this world, basically you did to yourself. This creator being is always aware of the fact that is the connection between all of us, because it is all of us. But from the perspective of one separate entity, like you or me, it seems as there would be you and everything else. We create a separation, and the separation makes you think that there's you and there's an outside world with materialistic things and other people and all of those. It's an illusion. So it seems as if there's 8 billion humans being all with a separate mind to perceive their own reality, but actually the separation of them only happens from their point of view. If you would see it from the point of view of infinite consciousness, it can see every perspective of all the 8 billion humans all in the same time. And you as a separate entity can still realize the fact that you are connected to all things that exist, or that you are actually all things that exist. So I believe when you dream, like when you go to sleep and you dream, you're already partly connected to this one. But when you die, you destroy the layer that separates you from everything, and you will be able again to perceive and become everything in existence, and will be able to perceive also every angle that you thought you are separated from. If we would all realize that we are the same, there wouldn't be any wars in the world anymore. People would be less likely to commit any crime, because they know that they would only hurt themselves eventually. And we would all like to receive love from our surrounding, because, I mean, if you know that this other person is also you, why would you harm yourself? Better to give love, and you will receive love back to yourself. So that's why every spiritual teaching is saying that love is the answer to all our problems. And if we start to spread love, peace, and happiness, then that will become our reality. Because if we're sending this out and we are that, we will receive it as well. So then also I noticed that I said it before, but when I mention God or consciousness, I'm talking about this one being that is responsible for everything in existence, the creator. But there are so many other names, like people call it the universe, religion called it Allah, Krishna, Yahweh, or there's the divine supreme. It all means the same thing. It's this one creator. People have billions of names for it, but whatever name you give it to, there can actually not be a real name. If you would talk about it properly, you would just be silent. That would be the best description. But, well, probably I will just say God in the future because it's easier for me. Well, now you know what I'm talking about. So far, so good. I have to go out with my dog, so I will take a little break, and we will be probably back when it's dark. But you're now on around the half of the first part of the pixel theory, so now if you need to take a break, now it's the time, and I see you back in a second. Ciao, ciao. Hello, I'm back now. I had to postpone it to another day, but now I can continue with the first part of the pixel theory, and I do it today together with Shima. So yeah, let's continue. So this part is called Genesis, like the creation of the universe in the Bible, or the creation of the world. If you want to have more information on this, I suggest to read the book of the Flower of Life, or if you want to see it in a video way, you can see it on the YouTube channel called Spirit Science. I will provide this link to the video and the sources. So basically, before the universe was created, there was only consciousness in an infinite void, so nothingness all around. There was no space around it, and so consciousness decided to create everything by projecting itself out and splitting up into infinite many little pieces. Most of this information, like I said, I have from the book of the Flower of Life. So if you want to understand it better, I really suggest that you read it. But I try to explain those pictures now. So you can imagine first just an infinite small dot, like a point. Or it's not a point because it's actually nothing. It doesn't have any form, but to understand better, we give it the form now. It was given here the form of, if I can zoom, there was a little eye, but it could be anything. So that is consciousness. And what it did now, it started to project itself into all the directions. So it went up, down, front, back, left and right. And when you connect those dots, basically what you get first, it created something that was like a diamond shape, because if you connect the front, back, and left and right to each other, you have something that looks here like the shape of a diamond. Then if you connect the up part with it, you would create something that looks like a pyramid here, and then you connect the down part as well, and you would have another pyramid. This shape would end up to be an octahedron, which you can here see in both sides. I think on the right it looks a little bit more detailed, so you can understand better. That is one of the 5 platonic solids, which I will talk about later a bit. But so the spirit created this shape by projecting itself out in all the directions, all the 3 dimensions that we know. And then what it would do is, like here in the first picture, it would start to rotate, and it would go in all the possible directions that it could reach to create a sphere around it. So this I will continue in the next picture. So once it has created a 360-degree image around itself, it moved outward to the edge of its own projection and did the same thing again. So after creating this octahedron shape, it started spinning and made a sphere, a ball, and then it moved outside to the edge of this ball and did the same movement again. So first it created duality, like we have here in this picture, and then it continued to make 6 circles around the middle one to create the structure that is called the seed of life, which you can see here. It's actually 8 spheres, but in this 2D image you can see only 7, because here the one in the middle would have one here and one behind it, but it will be the same in 2D. But imagine all of those shapes in 3 dimensions, because everything is 3-dimensional. We can just not display it really good here in the 2-dimensional screen, but you should see all of those circles as balls, as spheres, not just as 2-dimensional circles. So it did that, then it split up in 2 and moved to the edge and made another circle, and then where those 2 intersected, the 2 circles, it went here again and it made another circle, and it did that for 7, well, we say here days because it's connected to the Bible, how they say that the earth was created in 7 days. So here I have a video. I have to just remove myself so you can see it better. Give me a second. So I turn off this, exactly, and then you can see the video. So it did exactly that. Created a circle, went to the edge, create another circle, went to the points where they intersect, made another circle, and then here we have now the half of the creation and what they say, day 5, and then it continued and it created a shape that is called the seed of life. So now let me continue. Then once the first step was done, it continued to keep expanding in the same pattern outwards. So the same way that we have seen now, it did the seed of life, it went again to the edge on the point where the 2 circles were intersecting, and then it created something that was called the egg of life, which is this one here. And you can see the egg of life in 3 dimensions. Here I found the image where they showed it a little bit better, how it would really look. So you could imagine that this ball here in front is that one in the middle, and then the one here on the left is that outer one here. So you would have that shape called the egg of life, and it still continued, kept on expanding like this, and out and out and out more, until basically here. So now if we go further, until it reaches a total of 19 circles or spheres with complete flower petals inside. So once it's completed, you would end up with the famous structure that is called the flower of life, which we can see here. And this structure was found on many ancient sites, like they found it in Egypt, in Turkey, in China, and many places. Let me see, I think I have the next slide here, exactly where it shows where they have been found. So according to Drunvalo, who wrote this book about the flower of life, and this is the pattern the whole universe is made out of, and it has been found in ancient sites all over the world. So here I took some pictures of the Egypt temple of Osiris. Here it was etched into the wall. Then you can find it here in Turkey in a temple called, I think, Ophiuchus, where they had this shape on the floor. And then even in China, in the Forbidden City, they call them Fu dogs, but I think they are actually lions. And there's 2 of them in the entrance, and one of them is guarding a sphere, a ball, under his paw. And this ball has exactly the same patterns. Now here we can even see it in 3D with the same shape, the flower of life. So I assume that this shape that you can see there is the shape of the whole universe. So we keep on living inside this structure, but we have just completely forgotten about it. But you can imagine that the whole space is completely surrounded by those spheres intersecting everywhere, and that is what makes up reality. But you just don't see it in your everyday life because we forgot to understand how to see that. So now hopefully I can show you a way again how you will be able to see it, and I think I can say of myself now that I am able to see that structure, and to me it looks like it's the more true reality than the reality that you see normally. So let me continue. I move myself over there. When we are created, spirit gives a little piece of itself into a three-dimensional vessel that is then starting to realize itself and build up an ego and understanding of his surrounding. So the same way spirit created the surrounding of the universe, we are creating our surrounding body. So when an egg is fertilized with a sperm, which you can see here, the sperms are coming into the egg. First we have just a sphere, and then the sphere will start to split up through a process called mitosis. It will split itself up in two, just like spirit did here to create another circle and become two. And then it will split itself up into 4, which you can see here. It will split itself up into 8, which you can see here, and keep on doing that. So it will become 512 cells or spheres in general, and then from that, as a sphere will start onward to manipulate its shape and then slowly start to grow and expand into the human body that we have now, or that we have when we are born. So after following this process, the rest of our body starts to develop, never forgetting its original shape and rotations. Then the newly created person will start to perceive its surroundings via its 5 senses, and by that starts to forget that there is much more to see than only what we can see, hear, smell, touch, or taste. Once we are born, we are learning how to maneuver through that space and create certain concepts about how things work with our mind. And all these things are done by the ego through the mind. The mind is like a tool for the empty vessel to analyze and categorize its surroundings in order to be able to make an understanding of how things work and how to survive in this space. And then by the time we have created all that, we slowly forget the space where we originally came from, these spheres. And since our society is not putting much importance into the spiritual aspect, we grow up into a materialist and only believing in the things we can perceive with our 5 senses and totally forgetting about the other part. So for me, it was quite shocking to find out that the world as we know it is actually only a holographic projection of spirit. So I'll come to the next. I have to move myself over there. Yes. So coming to the illusion, the projection that spirit made. So reality might not be as real as we think it is. It has been understood by many ancient cultures, from the Egyptians and Mayas to the Indians and Greeks. And the concept of Maya, which by the Hindus it's understood as an illusion, is maybe more literal than what I have expected, because I thought maybe that is something like very abstract. But eventually it is really true that this tangible world that you can touch and see is not actually there, or it is there, but it's just there as a projection created from those many spheres. And basically we shouldn't believe that this is the only reality that there is. So if consciousness is one and exists purely in the void, in absolute nothingness, so without any time or space, and it projects itself into a space to create a visible world to interact with it, and then it gives rise to multiple fragment consciousnesses in that space to be able to perceive itself, because with one you cannot see anything, you need other parts to be able to see that one part. So we, as part of the Great One, merely perceive this illusion as real and give back to the source, God, partly when we dream, or maybe everything when we die from the experience that we have made. And I think we will understand it when we die, but maybe there is a way to understand it while you are still alive. And I think that is what people call the enlightenment, samadhi, or the nirvana, is to understand that you are one of those points, that intersection in the circle, and the reality that you think that you see with your mind is totally an illusion, and you can see the actual reality behind that one that you're normally seeing. And I think once you see that and once you understand it, you will connect again to the source, to God, to the thing that has created all of us. And that's the thing that we call enlightenment, because what God did when it started to project itself, it was sending light, and eventually that light will come back into you and you will be enlightened. So yeah, here are just the images of the way that spirit went, the 3 axes of our dimensions, up, down, left, right, and back and front, and then again the image of the seed of life. So then here are the ideas that people had before already. There's Plato's allegory of the cave, from the Hindus, Maya, the illusion. There's the movie of the Matrix, or something called holographic theory or simulation hypothesis. And then also in quantum physics, we have the multiverse theory, which is basically the same thing as the other ones, just another description for it in my eyes. But I think they all describe the same idea. There's something out there much, much bigger than us, or than the things that we can perceive with our 5 senses. The religions call it God or Allah or Krishna, and all of them did actually a great job trying to describe what are these things beyond our limits of the 5 senses. But our rapid evolution has brought us so far that with computer games and improving technology, we soon might be able to create our own simulation, a universe that will develop on its own. So maybe we can try to give a better or more up-to-date description of how such a matrix would work if it has been done by a supercomputer or universal consciousness before already. And suppose we are really stuck in a headset, or call it a real body, hooked to some sort of supercomputer or controller box, and we have simply forgotten that another reality out there exists, then it's the question, how can we combine the thought of spirituality and God together with the theory of the matrix, and understand how we can come back to go out there, leave our characters, our bodies that are just characters in the game, and become again the one who is playing the game instead of just being trapped here in this illusion. So maybe Plato's description is really similar to this, only in the words of a person who lived before the age of computers, so he didn't have anything that could describe something like a matrix, but to me it sounds exactly like the matrix, what he did there. What if tools like a meditation and prayers and mantras or near-death experiences, hypnosis, trance, through singing, dancing, music, sports, etc., or even with psychedelics, change something in the setting of your headset? By headset, I mean that you would have a VR glasses and something here, and then by that you completely forget your surroundings. So what if we are already trapped into that, but we have forgotten, and now this reality that we interact is just virtual, but there's a player out there trapped in the headset. So what if all those things, that if we do them, they will change something in the setting of the headset, which makes us then aware again that we are actually just watching a screen instead of watching reality. So they're not exactly like the red pill in the Matrix that will take you directly out of it, like when they offer to Neo, take the blue pill or the red pill, and he takes the red one and he goes out of the Matrix. But I think they do something like to shake a little bit your perception, as if somebody's shaking your real body, and you start to feel that there's something going on not in the virtual world, so that you're able to see the 3D constructed world is only a very complex set of binary numbers that are made to simulate a real world like in a video game. So maybe if you shake up your real body a little bit, you start to wake up for a moment until you then fall asleep again and are back in this virtual reality that we call our life. So it's like as if somebody would move your headset for a bit, maybe so close or to the side, and all of a sudden you start to see the pixels of the screen instead of starting to see the image that is getting displayed. Because if you look too close to the screen, eventually you start to see just pixels and you don't see the full image anymore. Or if you go too far away from the screen, you realize that I'm just watching a screen and there are other things out there and not just the screen. But I think as soon as those experiences start to stop, like when you stop meditating, or you go out of your trance, or the psychedelics will get less, the screen will just be exactly in front of you again, and then you will be back into this reality. So to describe the allegory of the cave from Plato, here I just made like a summary. I read the whole text and I just put the most important things there that I will just read to you right now. So the allegory begins with the prisoners who have lived their entire lives chained in a cave. Behind the prisoners is a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners are people carrying puppets or other objects. These cast shadow on the opposite wall. The prisoners watch these shadows, believing this to be their reality as they've known nothing else. Plato posits that one prisoner could become free. He finally sees the fire and realizes the shadows are fake. The prisoner could escape from the cave and discover there is a whole new world outside they were previously unaware of. The prisoner would believe the outside world is so much more real than the one in the cave. He would try to return to free the other prisoners, but they wouldn't believe him, and they would maybe even try to kill him for his different beliefs. And then you have this image there from esoteric, and I don't know if it's from a book or it has something to do with esoteric beliefs, that they depicted it for me perfectly, that this world that we're living in, the guy here inside with the tree, and on the earth you have the sun and the stars, and there is a way to look outside of it, and that one here is the true reality, that one that I describe as being made up out of spheres, a grid of spheres. And I believe many people have had the possibility to watch outside of there, and Plato probably had the similar experience as well, and that's how he came up with his allegory of the cave. So let's continue. Now I will remove myself. So now just additional information so you can understand a little bit better when I start with the real theory. So the following shapes play an important part in sacred geometry and are all part of the shapes which form our universe or reality when it's created. So Metatron's cube, which you can see here on the bottom left, is created from the flower of life shape. This contains all round and straight lines that can be drawn from the pattern called the fruit of life. So fruit of life would be just the circles here, and then you connect all the lines from every inside of every circle with every inside of every other circle, and you will end up with this, which looks like a cube. And also you have something that's called a Merkaba, a star tetrahedron, and basically all of the Platonic solids are found inside this shape. It is derived from the flower of life shape, completing the outer circles that form the whole pattern. So you have here the flower of life, but you finish all those circles that are here on the edge, so you have that shape that completes all the outer circles. And then isolating the 13 circles, which creates the fruit of life. So you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 circles. You isolate them, and then you draw lines from every center point of every circle to every other center point. So you start here, go there, 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 and then you do the same from this circle, go there, and you do that for all around, and then you will end up with this, which is called Metatron's cube. Maybe you can see it here a little bit better. So yeah, that is Metatron's cube. And then the Platonic solids that I mentioned before already. Platonic solids have their name from Plato and are supposedly the building blocks needed to create our world of matter. All of these shapes can be found within Metatron's cube, which I showed you before. So what makes up the Platonic solids is just basically that any of the 5 geometric solids whose faces are all identical are regular polygons meeting at the same 3-dimensional angles. So when you have here on the left side the tetrahedron, it's a triangle. That means that all of its faces have to be triangles in the same way, and they are standing at the same angle towards each other. Then the next one is a cube or a hexahedron, which means that all of the faces have to be squares and they're standing all at a 90-degree angle to each other. Then the next one is the octahedron, which you can see here, and it is made out of 8 triangles, which are also all standing at the same angle towards each other. And then comes also the dodecahedron here with 12 pentagons, and the icosahedron, which I think it's 20 triangles all standing at the same angle towards each other. Okay. So then also for you important to know, it's the star tetrahedron, or called also the Merkaba. Star tetrahedron are 2 tetrahedrons put into each other. So let me go back to that one. Here you can see one tetrahedron. The star tetrahedron is that one pointing up and the other one pointing down. One pointing up, the other one pointing down, put inside each other. And the word Merkaba comes from a Hebrew word meaning chariot or vehicle, and can also be defined as the light spirit body, with the description here: mer meaning light, ka meaning spirit, and ba meaning the body. The Merkaba is the vehicle that transports us from the material into the spiritual world. So once you start this journey and you want to go outside of the materialistic realm, you need your Merkaba to be able to maneuver inside that space where only spirit exists. Okay, so now that's it. That was the first part of the pixel theory, just the introduction to make sure we're on the same page. And now we can continue actually with the real theory that I have in the second part, where I will describe how I am seeing these patterns and how I believe they are building up our reality. So yeah, thank you for listening to that, and hope you were at least able to get some parts of it. And yeah, in the next one I will describe everything a little bit more in detail. I will add more images also to try to make it a bit more interesting and also better understandable. So yes, I will see you in the part 2 of the pixel theory. Ciao, ciao.